As we've already seen, it's completely understandable that we make an enemy of our emotions if we've experienced painful moods and feelings in the past. How then can we reconnect with our feelings? The attempt to avoid our own emotions, our thoughts, our feelings, and our body sensations is called experiential avoidance, avoidance of our own experience. Not surprisingly, it can become a habit. But pretending some feeling isn't actually here is like hearing a strange noise from your car engine and dealing with it by turning up the volume on the car radio. It works pretty well to blank out the noise, but it's not too effective in preventing the engine from seizing up 10 miles down the road. If we try to wall off bodily sensations, thoughts and feelings that are part and parcel of our emotional experience, then psychologically our mental engines are highly likely to seize up as well. Unless we are aware of them, unpleasant feelings will directly and indirectly influence our attitudes and judgments in ways that only perpetuate our unhappiness. Unless we are aware. There's the problem. When tuning out has become a habit, how can we learn to tune back in without becoming overwhelmed? It is helpful to know that an aspect of our own inner experience can help. We call it the Internal Barometer. Let me explain. When looking for a new place to live, have you ever come across a house or an apartment that sounded perfect? It has the number of rooms you need, excellent amenities, great neighbourhood. You think it's great until you visit it. As soon as you walk through the door, you know that it's not the place for you. You may not be able to say why. It's just an intuition. It's conscious, you're very aware of it, yet it's not expressible in words. Our feelings may have many dimensions, but underneath and underpinning them all is a single scale in the mind that simply registers experience as positive, neutral, or negative. It's as if this capacity functions as an internal barometer. Just as a real barometer provides a continuous readout of atmospheric pressure, this internal barometer provides a readout of the internal atmosphere of our experience in each moment. But just as we need to read the barometer to gain information about the weather, we will need to read, and if necessary learn how to read, this internal barometer by becoming more aware of what we are really feeling from moment to moment. For example, if a fleeting memory makes us feel suddenly sad or unhappy, we may not need to know what aspect of the memory triggered the emotion. The memory itself, or the emotion it evokes, will be registered as unpleasant, and it is this gut sense of unpleasantness that fuels the chain reaction that ensues. This might once have been the start of a downward spiral, but it doesn't have to be. For we can transform a cascade of reactions into a series of choice points. For one thing, by bringing a friendly, non-judgmental awareness right in close to the body sensations that accompany the unhappiness, we can immediately make wiser use of the information implicit in the sensations and feelings themselves. For many of us, it may be difficult at first to differentiate between that first perception of an unpleasant quality within the experience and the downstream reaction of aversion, because they're likely to be experienced as a fused whole. But by practicing meditations that are specifically focused on refining our awareness of the body, such as the body scan, it can become easier to detect the unpleasant quality in the feeling before it triggers aversion. Finally, and little by little, we may begin to notice that they are distinct, the unpleasantness registered first, followed by the "get me out of here" reaction of aversion, which is also then registered as unpleasant, and so the cycle continues. It is helpful to know that the most easily recognized expressions of aversion in the body are feelings of contraction in the shoulders or lower back, a tightening of the forehead, a clenching of the jaw, and a tightening of the belly. We have these fight or flight reactions whether we're trying to escape from a tiger or from our own inner feelings. However, we often stop noticing these aversive physiological reactions when the tiger is inside of us and has been with us for quite some time with no evident plans to vacate the premises. So, taking it one step at a time, how can we become more aware of the ensemble we have described, the body sensations that will reveal the fusion of the initial barometer reading unpleasant, and the cascade of habitual reactions that follow it? We've already started, for there is an infinite number of opportunities each time we practice the body scan. Can we be aware of feelings of unpleasantness or pleasantness and their immediate manifestation as sensations in the body, moment by moment? As we continue in that practice, we naturally become more familiar with feelings expressed not only in the particular regions of the body, but also in a sense of the body as a whole, held in awareness as we do at the end of each body scan. I want to say more now about this business of aversion and avoidance. And I want to refer to an example of an experiment that some psychologists did some years ago. It's a fascinating experiment. You might remember the puzzle books that we got when we were children. There were the connect the dots puzzles and the find the differences puzzles. And sometimes there'd be a maze, a labyrinth, and our task would be to draw a way out without taking the pencil off the page. Well, some years ago, psychologists used a similar maze puzzle in an intriguing experiment with college students. A cartoon mouse was shown trapped inside a picture of a maze, and the task was to help the mouse find the way out. There were two different versions of the task. One was positive, approach-oriented. The other was negative, or avoidance-oriented. In the positive condition, there was a piece of Swiss cheese lying outside the maze in front of a mouse hole. In the negative condition, the maze was exactly the same, but instead of the Swiss cheese feast at the finish, an owl hovered above the maze, ready to swoop down and capture the mouse in its talons at any moment. The maze takes less than 2 minutes to complete, and all the students who took part in the experiment solved their maze. But the contrast in the after effects of working on different versions of the maze was striking. When the participants later took a test of creativity, those who had helped their mouse avoid the owl turned in scores that were 50% lower than the scores of the students who'd helped their mouse find the cheese. The state of mind elicited by attending to the owl had resulted in a lingering sense of caution, avoidance, and vigilance for things going wrong. This mind state, in turn, weakened creativity, closed down options, and reduced the student's flexibility in responding to the next task. This experiment tells us something very important. The same action, even something as slight as solving a simple maze puzzle, has different consequences depending on whether it is done to move towards something we welcome or to avoid something negative. When we move towards something we welcome, it activates the brain's approach system. If we're doing something to avoid something negative, it's activating the brain's avoidance system. In the maze experiment, aversion was triggered by something as minor as the sight of a cartoon owl. It led to reductions in exploratory creative behaviours. This is dramatic evidence that the avoidance system can narrow the focus of our lives even when triggered by a purely symbolic threat. Moreover, this experiment points to the critical importance of the kind of motivation that we bring to the cultivation of mindfulness in our practice. If we can infuse our attention to our bodily experience with the approach qualities of interest, curiosity, warmth, and goodwill, then not only will we be in greater touch with sensations and feelings in each moment, we also will be directly countering any effects of aversion and avoidance that may be present. as with so much of what we're learning to do, cultivating wholesome and kind intention and motivation is just as much a part of the meditation practice as learning how to focus our attention in particular ways. In the practice that follows, which builds on the work of refining bodily awareness that we started in the body scan, we bring our attention to the range of sensations and feelings that arise in our bodies as we go through a 10-minute sequence of gentle standing yoga stretches. You might like to pause this program and do this practice now, or as soon as you can, following the instructions on track 3 of the guided practice session. Please note before you begin that in the practice of mindful movement, you must be sure to take special care if you have any physical problems that limit your movement right now. Consult your physician or physical therapist if you're unsure. The mouse in the maze experiment reminds us of the crucial importance of the spirit in which we approach this practice. We invite ourselves to explore what is going on in our body in the same way that we investigated eating the raisin, bringing an open-hearted awareness to whatever is available to be experienced from moment to moment. Unpleasant sensations will certainly arise at times and in various places in the body, especially while doing mindful yoga. These now become perfect opportunities for exploring how unpleasantness is related to aversion. So the challenge of each moment in the standing yoga is to purposefully experience the body just as it is, moment by moment, with openness and interest as if for the first time. And that includes sensing and gently exploring its limits in any given stretch or posture. Let's say we deliberately hold a stretch or a posture a little longer than feels comfortable and begin to experience some discomfort in the shoulders or back. The challenge is to put out the welcome mat for these sensations without pushing beyond anything, as we hold them in awareness and recognize their unpleasant quality. Can we notice the impulse to instantly label the sensations as pain or the whole experience as pure torture? By turning toward discomfort and unpleasantness, and by intentionally embracing them in awareness when they do arise, we are expanding the heart qualities of openness and goodwill in ourselves. By cultivating awareness in this way, we are weakening our tendency to avoid internal experiences we don't like. At the same time, we're also weakening our unconscious reliance on the doing mode, which, when fear-based, only entangles us in persistent unhappiness. Some people find it helpful to hone and deepen their awareness by silently inquiring, "What is this?" as they attend to their experience. As with all the other practices, the awareness we cultivate in the mindful yoga is available to us in all our moments. Using the body to ground us in awareness during the course of the day can be as simple as becoming mindful of our posture or of any movement, large or small, or of the contact we are making with the ground or with the chair or whatever we're supported by. This doesn't actually take any more time than being out of touch with our body and moving automatically and without awareness. Say we're reaching for something. We're doing it anyway. There's nothing extra we have to do. We simply bring attention to the body sensations in the region that is moving and the regions that are not moving. We can train ourselves to be here, right now, inhabiting the body with full awareness. Whatever is going on in our mind or body, our internal barometer is always here for us if we choose to read it. Doing so gives us far greater choice in terms of what happens in the very next moment. This in itself adds a new degree of freedom to our relationship to our interior experience. In addition to using the practice of mindful yoga to ground us in the body, we can deepen our awareness in other ways that can help us tune in to the signals of our internal barometer. One very powerful way is to extend the practice of mindfulness of the breath to include a sense of the body as a whole. You might like to experiment with this practice before listening further, following the instructions on track 5 of the guided practice session. As with all the practices we are exploring, remember to bring the same quality of open-heartedness to each moment as best you can, directly sensing body sensations and feelings as sensations and feelings. New dimensions of the experiences of both physical and emotional pain and suffering, and the potential for embracing them and understanding them differently, become available to us when we give ourselves over to the present moment and let go of all thoughts of the future and the past at just those moments of highest intensity. You might experiment with this shift in motivation and awareness whenever physical or emotional intensity arises in the meditation practice. You don't have to jump into the pool all at once. Just getting one toe in the water for even the briefest of moments, if that's all you can manage, can be profoundly revealing and potentially healing. The practice of expanding our attention around the breath to include a wider awareness of the body as a whole in the sitting meditation will provide many opportunities to refine the skills of breathing into that we described when we did the body scan. Breathing into can offer a powerful antidote to experiential avoidance. The breath can be seen as a vehicle carrying a gentle yet penetrating awareness into the region of intensity. We sense or imagine the breath as it moves into the body, continuing its journey until it enters the very core of the region of intensity, carrying awareness with it. As well as breathing into, we can also breathe with our experience. By including an awareness of the breath in the background as we focus on any experience, we can steady the mind and so attend more easily to our actual experience in any moment. For an example, if you were to put on a piece of music right now, you'd probably find that after focusing your attention on the music for a while, your mind would begin to wander. As an experiment now or some other time, you might like to see if you can pay attention to the music and also focus in the background on the breath as it moves in and out of your body. It may take a while to strike the right balance between the primary focus, the music in the foreground, and the steadying influence of the breath in the background. But many find the effort worthwhile because it offers us a very versatile way to steady the mind in complex and difficult situations. In particular, it can be an invaluable ally and support in our intention to expand the focus of awareness to the whole domain of felt bodily experience, when, as may often happen, this requires us to turn toward and face intense physical sensations and unpleasant feelings. There are many different ways in which we can reconnect with ignored or pushed away aspects of ourselves. By sampling a range of mindfulness practices over time, we can ultimately each find our own unique way back to befriending and learning from our full range of emotions. In that spirit, let's try something that might help us be more mindful and more accepting of our sometimes elusive feelings. Over the next few hours, be on the lookout for even the smallest moments when you register an experience as pleasant or unpleasant. Keep a record of what was actually going on in the moment in question, with particular attention to the interplay of feelings, thoughts, and physical sensations during each event. Recording what you were actually experiencing in each instance can be very valuable. Making a commitment to be aware of pleasant or unpleasant feelings in any moment requires tuning in, the exact opposite of experiential avoidance. The point of recognizing when situations evoke unpleasant feelings, or when our contracted bodies tell us that we have already reacted with aversion, is so we can then learn to respond more skillfully. Can we learn how to be with an unpleasant feeling in a way that is not going to get us trapped in obsessive preoccupation, endless cycles of rumination, and thus persistent unhappiness and depression? Can we transform our very relationship to our emotions? It is to this possibility that we now turn.